Hi, and welcome to Finding Your Way Through Therapy, a proud member of the Sightcraft Network. The goal of this podcast is to demystify therapy, what can happen in therapy, and the wide array of conversations you can have in and about therapy. Through personal experiences, guests will talk about therapy, their experiences with it, and how psychology and therapy are present in many places in their lives, with lots of authenticity and a touch of humor. Here is your host, Steve Bisson.
Merci beaucoup et bienvenue au troisième anniversaire de ce balado. Thank you very much and welcome to the third anniversary of this podcast, episode 153. I can't tell you how excited I am. I'm supposed to do people pleasing, but I'm like, let's celebrate, right? Let's do something nice. Because I thought that it would be fun for you guys to hear a whole lot about what's been happening for the last 3 years. So if you go back 3 years, go listen to those podcasts. Wow, yeah, I was getting my sea legs, or getting my podcast legs, I should say. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm not saying it was great. But you can go listen to the first episode, the trailer, and then I released with Jay Ball right away, pretty much the next day. So you guys had an episode plus an intro plus a trailer. So, I've been around, like there's 172 episodes. This is episode 172, but because it was specials, there was a lot of different things. So it really is episode 153. So there's a lot of things I can say about this podcast. But the first thing I want to thank you guys who listen. I don't have 100 million listeners like Joe Rogan, or that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. But I do have some regular listeners who write to me, and please write to me as often as you wish. I'm always interested in hearing from you guys. But it's you guys that make it worthwhile. There's days where I don't want to do this, and what I mean by that is that you're talking to a microphone. I think I've said that to many of you privately. I think I've said that even on this podcast, but literally I'm talking to my Rode microphone, and sometimes that can be very challenging, right? So having your messages, hey, that was good. Did you hear? I like that episode about sleep, or I like that episode around trauma or grief or first responders, which is the most common one that I get. So, those mean a lot to me. So let's hear a few stats if you want to hear it. I don't know exactly where I am at in numbers for listeners, but last I checked, which was last week, there's been 153,000 or so downloads. So that's nothing to sneeze at, right? That's 3 years. That's 50,000 per year. That's not too bad at all. So again, no Joe Rogan numbers here, but nonetheless, not bad at all. In 153 episodes, I've recorded 6,875 minutes, which roughly translates to, if you listen back to back, go to the trailer all the way to today, not counting today, actually, because I don't know how long this is going to be. You'd have to listen straight out for 4.7 days for you to listen back to back to back to back to back. In other words, 114 hours. Again, nothing to sneeze at, right? I really am happy that I've done that. That's mostly original content. If you take a little bit of the best of and all that, maybe you get down to 4.1, but nonetheless, that's a lot of listening and that's a lot of original content. So I wanted to share that with you. Average length of podcast is 40 point something minutes, or 40 minutes, which is not too bad. I do some solos like today. And then I do non-solos, which the interviews are anywhere from 45. And obviously I've had interviews that went for over an hour, but that's roughly what it is. So let's hear also about the most popular guests. And what I mean by that is the most download episode was also with the guest that I've been on for 10 times. Yes, Pat Rice has been on for 10 whole episodes. So he falls number one as most guest on this podcast. He's come on with the Mental Men. He's come up with his friend from Maine. He's come on solo episodes. He's done everything. So for me, Pat has been quite the remarkable guest. Then Jay Ball, my friend who came in, talks about first responder stuff. We talked about Ukraine also at one point, and also came on with Caitlin Deehee on a regular basis. He has been on 9 times. And as a tie, as number 3, is Caitlin Deehee, the aforementioned Caitlin Deehee, great clinician from the Westboro Behavioral Health Group, who works with first responders right here in Massachusetts. And then Stephanie Simpson, the great coach in New York City. She's been on 4 times also. And I want to have Steph back on. She gave me a few ideas in regards to other people to have on. So I'm going to do that. But would love to have Stephanie back on. Absolutely love talking to all of those. I love all my guests. I would say that of all the guests I've had, I can't think of anyone that I didn't, like I went, oh my God, I don't like them. But I definitely have liked my guests. So hopefully you got some content about that. The other guest that I did not mention, because she's no longer a guest, she's a co-host and sometimes a regular host. She's a regular guest host. Courtney Romanowski, I think, has been on like 7 times. But because she's a host now, then she doesn't technically count as a guest, right? So we'll put her down as 7, but she is now a co-host. So, but Courtney, from the bottom of my heart, I know how much trepidation you had joining this podcast at the beginning, and now you've gotten a taste of it, and you bring in all forms of, I don't even know what to call them, like art, dance, drama, therapy, something that, I know little about, but I think all my listeners really want to hear about it. So I really appreciate that. Courtney's going to continue doing this for a long time, I'm sure. I also want to thank, and yes, thank, I can't pronounce THs, my original editor, Laura Distiller. She was amazing. She did a great job. Just needed to have something new. And for the last 8 months, roughly 9 months, even more, maybe, Chelsea Weaver has been my editor. She's been very fantastic. And I truly appreciate her and her contribution here. The other one that I want to thank is because Lisa Mustard really helped me when I started off. But the person, what she also brought me to is the Psychcraft Network. And you've heard a few guests from the Psychcraft Network. You've heard, obviously, Lisa. You've heard Gordon Brewer, who is the original. He's the one who created Psychcraft Network. You've heard Christine McDonald come on to this show. So you've had a few people who are on the network, and I continue to support the Psychcraft Network. And I think that they're very, very helpful to me. And I like being part of that group. The other one that I'm going to put it right after I mention this, I want you guys to listen to Free.ai. Free.ai is the first ever regular sponsor I've had. And I'm going to plug it again. Free.ai is awesome. It really takes away from my time doing progress notes. Very much helpful. Comes up with goals, even does mental status exams. But anyway, you're going to hear a commercial right after this. I'm going to make sure that you hear it, but use code Steve50 to get a $50 off on a new subscription. So please go to that, and here's the commercial. Getfree.ai. Yes, you've heard me talk about it previously in other episodes, but I'm going to talk about it again because Getfree.ai is just a great service. Imagine being able to pay attention to your clients all the time instead of writing notes and making sure that the note's going to sound good and how are you going to write that note and things like that. Getfree.ai liberates you from making sure that you're writing what the client is saying, because it is keeping track of what you're saying and will create, after the end of every session, a progress note. But it goes above and beyond that. Not only does it create a progress note, it also gives you suggestions for goals, gives you even a mental status if you've asked questions around that, as well as being able to write a letter for your client to know what you talked about. So that's the great thing. It saves me time, it saves me a lot of aggravation, and it just speeds up the progress note process so well. And for $99 a month, I know that that's nothing. That's worth my time. That's worth my money. The best part of it too is that if you want to go and put in the code Steve50 when you get the service, at the checkout code is Steve50, you get $50 off your first month. And if you get a whole year, you save a whole 10% for the whole year. So again, Steve50 at checkout for getfree.ai will give you $50 off for the first month. And like I said, get a full year, get 10% off. Get freed from writing notes, get freed from always scribbling while you're talking to a client, and just paying attention to your client so they win out, you win out, everybody wins. And I think that this is the greatest thing. And if you're up to a point where you got to change the treatment plan, well, the goals are generated for you. So getfree.ai, code Steve50 to save $50 on your first month. Well, thank you for listening to that commercial. And I'm going to kind of come in and kind of like wrap it up. What's going to come in the next few episodes in a few weeks? Well, the first thing I got to mention is that this summer I'm taking time off. I think I'm going to take anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks off. Why? Just tired. Honestly, this is fun to do. But right now, you know about season 1 to 10, where we're really like what I call survivor mode episodes. And what I mean by that is they were like 13 or so weeks. This year, 2024, we've done original episodes until right now, and I'm hoping to do original episodes till about June, just so you guys have new content, listening to different things. I have a lot of new guests coming on, which is exciting. Hopefully, Stephanie also might come on, but maybe I'll wait till the fall. I don't know yet. And Courtney, I think, has another one that she's going to do right before summer starts. But I'm very excited about having some time off just to refresh my mind and be excited about coming back to the podcast. I'm going to put in the best of every week. So basically, I'm going to take an old episode and put it in for those weeks. Haven't decided quite yet who I'm going to do, but I'm working on that. But just to take the summer off and then come back in the fall and be really excited about that and coming in with new guests and old guests and really get you guys engaged into what I think is a great podcast. Finding Your Way Through Therapy was influenced by a book that I wrote called Finding Your Way Through Therapy. And I hope people go and get it. Most people who have gotten it are like, oh yeah, that really does. Like, it's almost every chapter is kind of a podcast. And I hope you go back and get the book. I actually don't go back and get the book. Get the book. Very affordable on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles. And I hope you go back, because that really is the influence of this podcast and really, really can be a complimentary to this podcast. So anyway, wanted to thank you, and I'm excited. Obviously, I love doing this podcast. You don't talk to yourself for other than the guests. You don't dedicate, 4.7 days, give or take, plus whatever I need to set it up, give it, make the nice little edits that I have to do that, so that you can have access to it, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get it. Obviously, Apple Podcasts, my biggest contributor. But, you got to love it a little bit. And I can't wait to do some more about that. But, refreshing is nothing wrong with that. As you know, I had an old French podcast that I did for this, Finding Your Way Through Therapy, called Retrouver son chemin par la thérapie. And I decided after a while not to do it, just because, I wasn't getting the traction, so to speak. I don't know if that's fair for me to say, but maybe I didn't have my heart into it, but what have you, but I've tried. So that's it. I wanted to share a little bit about how I feel. Episode 154 will be people pleasing. So I hope you join me then. And again, thank you for wonderful 3 years, you the listener, everyone that I thanked, my guests that I can't go through all the names. I've had 73 different guests, and some repeating, of course, but 73 guests, and a lot of those individuals, I'd say about a half, I never met. It's just people I kind of interviewed, and got to meet a few of them actually a few weeks ago at I don't even know what to call it, a mental health get-together. I don't know what to call it, but we had a great time. Leon Doubleday, among others, and Brian was there, Keith Hanks, and I'm hoping to have Keith Hanks back because he has a book coming out, so I can't wait for him to share about that. Anyway, episode 154, people pleasing. Thank you. I hope to hear from you. I'd like to get some best wishes. If did you listen to this? Did you enjoy it? What do you want in the future? But I hope to hear from you. But 154 for sure, people pleasing. I hope you have a great time continuing to listen to this podcast, and thank you.
Please like, subscribe, and follow this podcast on your favorite platform. A glowing review is always helpful. And as a reminder, this podcast is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. If you're struggling with a mental health or substance abuse issue, please reach out to a professional counselor for consultation. If you are in a mental health crisis, call 988 for assistance. This number is available in the United States and Canada.